Is your story already written? This is a question that echoes through civilizations. We look up at the stars and wonder, are we part of an unchangeable design, or do we hold the pen, carving our own unique path? This tension lies at the core of what it means to be human, to seek meaning in a world that feels both planned and free. In Islam, this question finds its voice in the concept of Qadar, often translated as fate. It's a tapestry woven from divine power and human free will. To explore Qadar is to journey into the heart of Islamic faith, embracing both order and choice. In Islam, belief in Qadar is a cornerstone of faith. The Prophet Muhammad listed it as one of the 6 fundamental articles of faith. It affirms that nothing happens outside God's knowledge and will. If everything is decreed, what is the point of our choices? Each person has a will, an ability to choose, and will be held accountable. This is the central tension of Qadar, God's plan versus humanity's freedom. It's about trusting in God while taking responsibility. This documentary is an invitation to explore that sacred paradox. We will journey through 14 centuries of profound theological thought, personal stories, cultural expression, to uncover the untold story of Qadar. Our exploration begins where Islam itself begins, with its foundational texts. We will delve into the verses of the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to understand how divine decree and human free will are presented side by side, creating a framework both comforting and challenging, empowering and humbling. From there, our path will lead us through history, into the vibrant and often fierce debates that shaped Islamic civilization. We will meet the early schools of thought that wrestled with this very question. We will hear the voices of the Qadarites, who championed absolute free will to defend God's justice, and the Jabrites, who argued for absolute predestination to uphold God's power. We will see how orthodox Sunni and Shia Islam navigated between these extremes, forging a nuanced middle path that became the bedrock of belief for billions, a path described as an affair between 2 affairs. Our journey will not be confined to ancient texts and scholarly debates. We will also explore how Qadar is lived and breathed in the daily lives of Muslims today. How does this belief shape a person's response to tragedy or success? How does it influence prayer, ethics, and art? We will address the common misconception that Qadar is simple fatalism, a passive resignation to fate, and reveal how for many it is a source of profound strength, resilience, and motivation. We will see that true belief in Qadar is not an excuse for inaction, but a call to strive with the full confidence that you are part of a divine plan. Finally, we will place this rich Islamic conversation into a wider context, briefly comparing it to views of destiny in Judaism, Christianity, and other world traditions. Our aim is to create a documentary that is both scholarly and accessible, poetic and informative. It is a story for Muslims seeking a deeper understanding of their own faith, for people of other faiths curious about one of Islam's core tenets, and for anyone who has ever looked at their own life and asked that timeless question, is my destiny written or am I the one writing it? Let us begin the journey to find out. At the very heart of the Islamic worldview lies a profound truth. The universe is not a chaotic accident, but a cosmos authored by a single, all-knowing creator. The Quran speaks of this with clarity, declaring, "Indeed, all things we created with predestination." Every event unfolds according to a divine measure, a perfect plan. Nothing is outside of God's infinite knowledge and will. The Quran speaks of a divine register in which the story of creation is inscribed. It is intended to instill a deep sense of peace and trust. There is a higher wisdom at play, trust in the ultimate wisdom and mercy of the one who holds the pen. Islam champions human choice. The Quran is a book of guidance, filled with commands and moral exhortations, presupposing our capacity to choose. A pivotal verse declares, "The truth is from your Lord, so whoever wills let him believe." Verses like, "Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves," place responsibility on human shoulders. This ability to choose, this free will, is a sacred trust given to humanity by God, God willed to create beings who have a will of their own. He created the stage, wrote the story, and knows the outcome, yet has given us our own role to play. How can destiny be written while our choices remain genuinely free? This is the sacred paradox at the heart of Qadar, a mystery that Islamic thought encourages us to live rather than just solve. The Quran itself often presents both realities in close proximity, inviting reflection on their interplay. These are not seen as contradictory statements, but as two sides of the same divine reality. Act, for each of you will be facilitated toward that for which he was created. Tie your camel, and then put your trust in Allah. After we have done everything in our power, we must relinquish the outcome to God, trusting that whatever happens is by His decree. It is a worldview that fosters both responsibility and surrender, both effort and trust. It is in the weaving of these two threads, our human effort and God's divine decree, that the beautiful fabric of a believer's life is made. As Islam spread, the paradox of Qadar sparked debate. Foundational texts held divine decree and human will in balance, which is more fundamental, God's power or humanity's freedom. This question created theological fault lines in the Muslim community. Rulers used predestination to justify their power, sparking reaction from scholars. Two camps formed, the Qadariya, championing free will, and the Jabriya, advocating absolute predestination. This clash dominated early Islamic theology, forcing deeper thought about Qadar. The Qadarites emerged defending the absolute justice of God. They questioned how a just God could punish someone for a sin he willed. Their answer, God does not create our evil deeds. We do. The Qadarites emphasized verses of the Quran that speak of human choice and responsibility. God gave humans the power to act, delegating the freedom of choice entirely to them. This made human beings fully accountable. This defense of free will troubled the wider Muslim community. If God does not control human actions, is his power truly absolute? Their conclusion seemed to diminish his sovereignty, which mainstream Islamic thought found unacceptable. At the opposite end were the Jabrites. Their name means compulsion, perfectly describing their worldview. Where others saw human freedom, the Jabrites saw only divine power. Their goal was to uphold God's absolute sovereignty. To them, human free will defying God was unthinkable. For the Jabrites, God was the only actor. Humans had no real choice. Actions, thoughts, beliefs, everything was created and compelled by God. Choice is an illusion. We are like a feather blown by the wind, with no will of our own. Every move is divinely determined. But if humans have no free will, how can they be morally responsible? It seemed to turn the day of judgment into a cruel performance. Both sides had seized a single thread of truth leading to a broken conclusion. The true path must lie in the middle. Out of the fierce debates, a new consensus began to emerge. The majority of Islamic thinkers recognized both extremes had missed the mark. It had to be a synthesis, a way of thinking that could hold both of these sacred truths together. This became the central project for the architects of orthodox Islamic theology. In the Sunni world, Abul Hasan al-Ashʿari and Abu Mansur al-Maturidi independently developed theological systems that charted this middle course. Their work provided the intellectual backbone for Sunni Islam for the next millennium. Our story is a collaboration, a divine-human partnership where God holds the ultimate authority. Imam al-Ashʿari explained the relationship between God's power and human choice. God is the one and only creator. Whether a person chooses to pray or to steal, the physical act itself is created by God. Al-Ashʿari introduced acquisition or earning. God creates the act, the human being acquires it by intention. God creates both the power to act and the action itself. The human role is to direct their intention towards one possibility over another. This affirms that God is the sole creator, preserving his absolute sovereignty, yet humans are accountable, preserving divine justice. Working in Central Asia, Imam al-Maturidi developed a parallel synthesis. Like the Ash'aris, the Maturides sought a middle path between compulsion and total free will. The Maturidi school taught that God creates in every human being a capacity for choice. It is our choice that directs the outcome. Together, these two schools provided the Sunni world with a rich and stable theological framework. Shia Islam, particularly the Twelver school, forged a middle path on Qadar. A famous saying attributed to the sixth Imam, Jafar al-Sadiq, encapsulates this: La Jabra wala Tafwid, Bal Amrun Bain Amrain. There is neither compulsion nor absolute delegation, but rather an affair between the two affairs. Shia theology emphasizes divine justice. This suggests a dynamic interplay. Human beings genuinely act through God-given will, sustained by his permission. Like a father teaching his child to walk, it's a shared act, a partnership of will and enabling power. We are responsible, within the reality God creates, in a synthesis of divine power and human freedom. The Mu'tazilites, flourishing from the 8th to the 10th centuries, were known for their bold use of rationalism. For them, theology began with the absolute unity and justice of God. Their commitment to divine justice defined their perspective. The Mu'tazilites argued God gave humans reason to distinguish between good and evil. It is unjust to punish someone for an act they were forced to commit. God is perfectly just, therefore, humans must possess genuine free will. This focus on justice became the lens through which they interpreted Scripture. Evil originates from the choices of his creatures, not from his divine will. To safeguard God's justice, one must affirm human freedom. The Mu'tazilites believed humans are the authors of their actions. God gives humans life, power, and choice, delegating the creation of their choices to them. This was their solution to the problem of evil and responsibility. This challenged the view that God is the sole creator of all things. If we aren't the authors of our deeds, divine law becomes futile. Moral agency required authorship. Qadar referred to the framework within which our free will operates. This placed moral responsibility on humans. Opponents argued this compromised God's omnipotence. The Mu'tazilite school enjoyed a period of great influence, even becoming the official state doctrine of the Abbasid Caliphate for a time in the 9th century. This led to a period of persecution known as the Mihna, or Inquisition, where scholars who rejected Mu'tazilite doctrines like the esteemed Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal were punished. However, this official status was short-lived. The intellectual tide eventually turned. Ashʿari Maturidi schools rose to prominence, offering a synthesis aligned with scriptural traditions and broader Muslim sensibilities. The Mu'tazilite school, as a distinct entity, gradually faded from the Sunni world. Despite that decline, the Mu'tazilite legacy endured. Emphasis on reason, justice, human free will left a lasting mark on the landscape of Islamic intellectual history. Their methods were absorbed and adapted notably by Shia theology. Shia emphasis on ADL and rejection of Jabr owe a debt to Mu'tazilite groundwork. These ideas circulated and enriched theological debate for centuries. In the modern era, a renewed interest appears among reformers. Faced with modernity ethics, human rights, some scholars look back to Mu'tazilism as rational, progressive, humanistic. They see faith and reason as partners. Their insistence that doctrine not contradict rational principles of justice and morality resonates with those shaping a responsive, authentic Islam. The Mu'tazilites are a crucial chapter in the story of Qadar. They made the strongest classical case for human freedom. Though not adopted by the mainstream, their questions were essential. They forced Islam to grapple with divine justice and human responsibility. Their rationalist spirit is a reminder that the search for understanding in faith requires both the heart and the mind. Qadar isn't just a theological idea, it's alive in the daily language of Muslims everywhere. Phrases like Insha'Allah are attached to nearly every future plan, reminding speakers outcomes are in God's hands. Insha'Allah, if God wills. Alhamdulillah is used after successes and after relief, attributing good to divine grace. In hardship, Qadar Allahu wa masha'a fa'al expresses acceptance, not defeat. These phrases aren't just habits, they're acts of humility, they're acts of resilience, they're acts of trust. They turn ambition into partnership with the divine, they turn setbacks into opportunities for spiritual growth. Everyday speech becomes a reminder life's events, good or bad, are part of a greater plan. This language shapes a worldview. Striving is essential, but so is surrender. Through these words, Qadar moves from abstract doctrine to lived reality. The doctrine of fate, then, is not just believed, it's spoken, felt, and shared in every conversation. Qadar is often misunderstood as fatalism, but for believers, it's a source of strength, not passivity. Trusting in God's decree frees people from anxiety about the future and regret over the past. It encourages fearless striving. Do your best, then leave the outcome to God. The Prophet's teaching to tie your camel and trust in God shows that effort and faith go hand in hand. Every action, studying, working, helping others, becomes an act of worship. Success is a blessing. Failure is a lesson, both part of God's wisdom. In crisis, Qadar inspires courage and patience, turning suffering into meaningful endurance. It's not about giving up, but about enduring with hope and continuing to strive. Belief in Qadar transforms hardship into a test and effort into trust in a compassionate creator. For millions, Qadar is the engine of resilience and hope. Qadar's influence extends beyond theology. It's woven into Islamic culture, art, and storytelling. Epic tales and poetry, from 1001 Nights to Rumi's verses, explore destiny and human choice. Heroes face fate, but their courage and virtue shape their journey. Persian poets like Hafez and Rumi meditate on fate as longing for the divine. Islamic art, geometric patterns and calligraphy, reflects a universe ordered by God's decree. These designs symbolize infinite order and the eternal nature of fate. Calligraphy turns verses about Qadar into visual expressions of faith. Through stories and art, Qadar becomes accessible, not rigid law, but the backdrop for human drama. The tension between fate and free will is explored as a source of meaning and beauty. Accepting fate in this cultural context becomes an act of heroism and artistry. The understanding of Qadar has evolved throughout Islamic history. Early Muslims saw it as a source of unity and courage, accepting destiny with faith and action. As Islamic civilization expanded, debates arose. Qadarites, Jabrites, Muʿtazilites argued over fate and free will. The Ashʿari and Maturidi schools forged a balanced view. Destiny is God's secret, to be respected, not fully explained. Over centuries, scholars like al-Ghazali and poets like Rumi integrated Qadar into spiritual life, emphasizing contentment and surrender. The doctrine became a familiar mystery, shaping both creed and culture. Modern challenges, colonialism, science, globalization, forced new interpretations and debates. Qadar's journey shows a tradition that adapts, engaging with each era's questions. The conversation is ongoing, reflecting a living faith. Qadar remains a dynamic part of Islamic thought, ever relevant to new generations. Colonialism and decline sparked deep reflection in the Muslim world. Reformers argued that fatalistic views of Qadar led to stagnation and apathy. They called for a return to the proactive faith of early Muslims, believing in God's decree while striving for change. Al-Afghani, Abdu, and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan urged Muslims to embrace effort and reason. The Qur'anic verse, "Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves," became a rallying cry. Qadar was reinterpreted as the laws of cause and effect. Success requires action. This shift inspired social and political reform, challenging passive acceptance. Muhammad Iqbal saw Qadar as creative possibility, with humans shaping destiny through bold choices. The doctrine became a philosophy of empowerment, not resignation. Reformers transformed Qadar into a call for renewal and progress. Modern science and philosophy brought new questions to Qadar. Deterministic physics once seemed to support fate, but quantum mechanics introduced uncertainty and possibility. Some Muslim thinkers saw this as a metaphor for a universe not fully predetermined. The dialogue with Western philosophy led to new ways of explaining Qadar, like compatibilism. Free will and destiny can coexist. Islamic theology had long grappled with these issues, offering nuanced solutions. Today, scholars use analogies from physics and philosophy to make Qadar accessible. God's knowledge is seen as outside time, like an author knowing a story's end while characters live it out. This engagement shows the resilience of Islamic thought, adapting without losing its roots. Qadar is now explained with confidence, bridging tradition and modernity. The conversation continues, keeping faith relevant in a changing world. Today, the discourse on Qadar is more diverse and accessible than ever before. In a globalized world connected by the internet, conversations that were once confined to elite scholars are now happening on social media, in online forums, and through digital platforms. Institutions like the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research, Yasir Qadi Hamza Yusuf, produce accessible content, papers, lectures, and videos that aims to explain Qadar to a new generation of Muslims living in a complex, often secular world. A central theme in this contemporary discussion is the practical psychological benefit of believing in Qadar. The focus is often on how this belief can foster mental and spiritual well-being. In an age marked by anxiety, uncertainty, and immense pressure to succeed, the concept of Qadar is presented as a powerful antidote. It is framed as a source of resilience, a way to find peace by accepting what one cannot control, and a source of motivation to focus on what one can, one's own effort, character, and intentions. This therapeutic framing resonates deeply with a generation searching for meaning and stability in a rapidly changing world. At the same time, the call for social responsibility remains a powerful part of the conversation. Contemporary Islamic ethics consistently link belief in Qadar to a duty to fight for justice and improve the world. Scholars emphasize that blaming fate for societal problems like poverty, inequality, or environmental destruction is a profound misunderstanding of the faith. Instead, true belief in Qadar compels one to act, trusting that God has empowered humanity to be his stewards on earth. This activist interpretation ensures that the doctrine remains a force for positive change, not a justification for complacency. Ultimately, the story of Qadar in the 21st century is a story of continuity and adaptation. The core paradox, God's absolute sovereignty and humanity's sacred responsibility, remains at the heart of the belief. The middle path, articulated by the great theologians of the past, continues to be the guiding principle. But the language used to explain it, the challenges it addresses, and the applications drawn from it are constantly evolving. The living tradition of Islam continues to engage with this profound question, ensuring that the untold story of Qadar is one that will continue to inspire, comfort, and empower believers for generations to come. The questions surrounding destiny and free will are part of a universal human conversation. In Christianity, the debate over predestination has a long history. This mirrors early Islamic debates, showing a shared struggle to reconcile God's power with his justice. Judaism, too, grapples with this paradox. Beyond Abrahamic traditions, concepts of fate are central to many Eastern religions. Humanity is united in its quest to understand its place in the grand cosmic scheme. The Islamic concept of Qadar is a unique contribution to this global conversation. By placing this dialogue in a wider context, we can appreciate Qadar as Islam's answer to an enduring question. Our journey through the untold story of Qadar, from the verses of the Qur'an to the vibrant debates of early theologians, from the quiet language of daily prayer to the dynamic interpretations of the modern age. We have seen that Qadar is not a simple doctrine of fatalism. It is a sacred and profound paradox, a delicate tapestry woven God's absolute, all-encompassing will, humanity's real, meaningful freedom. To be a Muslim is to live within this beautiful tension, embrace the humbling reality of God's decree and the empowering responsibility of our choices. This is the middle path. This belief transforms. It provides unshakable resilience in hardship. It lets believers see trials as meaningful tests from a compassionate Creator. It cultivates deep humility and success, reminds us achievements are gifts from God. It liberates the soul from anxiety and regret, frees us to engage courageously in the present. It fosters patience, gratitude, and a profound, trusting peace. Yet this peace is not passive. The true understanding of Qadar is a call to action. It is the wisdom of tying one's camel before putting trust in God. It commands us to strive, to learn, to build, and to seek justice. Our efforts are the tools by which God's plan unfolds. We are partners shaping the world, responsible to change our condition for the better. This belief breeds fearless, hopeful engagement with life, secure that we do our part while the final outcome rests in the best hands. Is your destiny written? The divine knows the grand outline, its beginning and its end. But the lines we speak, the character we build, the moral courage we display, we write those. Qadar is trust in God's wisdom and a call to live the sacred trust of human freedom, an invitation to walk a path of effort, surrender, responsibility and peace, a journey back to the source of all destiny.